Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about the New York Rangers as we continue looking at the season previews. 2023-2024 season getting closer and closer and closer. And for the New York Rangers, I'm sure they're anxious to get back at it after a first-round loss against the New Jersey Devils. I almost said upset, but the Devils had home ice. It still did feel like an upset to me, though, in that the New York Rangers were coming off of a conference final appearance the year before and definitely seemed to be progressing towards a potential Stanley Cup, which would have been their first since 1994. So maybe it's just a bump in the road. We'll find out. They were 47, 22, and 13 this season. Good for ninth overall in the National Hockey League. Their goals scored and goals allowed, they scored 3.33 goals per game. That's a good total. And so are the 2.63 goals against. Goals against are going to tend to be low when you've got Igor Shesterkin as your goaltender. For power play, 24.1%. That's a really good number. Their penalty kill also solid at 81.2%. You add those two together, that's 105.3. So that's, I will say, excellent. Now, if it's 110 or higher, it's considered elite. But 105, not too shabby. So they played well 5-on-5. They played really well when it came to special teams. They did make the playoffs this year, as mentioned. They won a round the year before, and as stated, they won the Cup last time in 1994. One sticking point for this team right now would be a lack of cap space, and that seems to have probably changed their plans in the offseason. I think there's players they would have brought back if they'd had the space to do it, and Tarasenko's the one that I think stands out there. But when you look at their top five scorers this past season, Artemi Panarin's at the top. 82 games, 29 goals, 63 assists, 92 points. Very, very much a player who's under the gun right now. He needs to go out there and show that the contract he has, which is an expensive one, that he's still able to play up to it. And that's the thing with long-term deals. It could be tougher for a player to live up to that contract later on in the lifetime of that contract. But I think Panarin's good. The problem is he's coming off of a poor performance in the playoffs as well. 2 assists in 7 games in that series against the Devils. They really needed a goal out of him, and it just wasn't there. Zibanejad, on the other hand, 82 games, 39 goals, to go with 52 assists for 91 points. He had a very strong season. The 39 goals, really close to 40. It's sad he didn't get there, but I think he still can. So Zibanejad probably seen as better than Panarin right now, but we'll see if that's the case this season. Adam Fox, a ridiculously good defenseman, 82 games, 12 goals, 60 assists, 72 points. He's also very good defensively. The points totals can make you think, well, he's an offensive defenseman. Fox is also very good in his own zone. Trocheck, 82 games for him as well. So the top 4 players on this list didn't miss a game. 22 goals, 42 assists, 64 points for Trocheck. And then you've got Kreider. He missed 3 games, played 79 in total. 36 goals, 18 assists, 54 points. 36 goals is fine. The 18 assists, I think Kreider's going to want to bring that total up. But this is a team that can score goals, and this is a team that can keep the puck out of the net because they've got Igor. So the Igor's better chance, and just in general, Igor chance. We're going to hear a lot of those this year. Shesterkin, 58 games, 37, 13, and 8 record, 916 save percentage. It's crazy that a 916 save percentage you look at and think, well, he can do better than that. We've mentioned that with Vasilevsky in the Tampa preview, and now we'll mention it with Shesterkin's. It shows when you've arrived as a goaltender. When you have very good numbers and people still look and say, well, we know he can be better than that. Jaro Halak eventually had a pretty good season. It started out kind of rough for him. 25 games, he ends up 10, 9, and 5, 903 save percentage. And though he has stated his intention to keep playing hockey and not retire this summer, the Rangers have opted to go with Jonathan Quick as their backup goaltender for this season, and we'll see how that goes for them. I'll talk about that again later on in the video. Their hits leader is Jacob Trouba, 218 hits. He also leads in block shots with 196. There are players who don't like the overly physical part of his game, but if he wasn't playing on the edge, he's not playing Trouba's style of game. And so for him to be effective, he's probably always going to be right on that edge. Which, again, I understand there's people who don't like some of the hits he throws. But he seems to understand what's legal and what's not. And I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. It is reminiscent of Scott Stevens, knowing what hits you can and can't throw. Posts, Vinny Trocheck hit 12 of them this past season. So he leads the team in that category. And with a 22-goal season, if he can hit the net on half of those, suddenly it's a 28-goal season. For the next one on this team, so the next star player, I went with the first round draft pick from this year. I went with Perreault. I like Perreault as a pick for the New York Rangers. I think that was good that he dropped to them in the draft. He could have gone as high as top 12, so looks like a steal there. I figured why not put him in there, and then to get Othman's name on the board, I figured I'd throw him up there as the fantasy sleeper. Othman's generated some excitement, at least some intrigue with Ranger fans. We'll see if he makes the team. I think you'd need an injury for him to get onto the team, but it can happen. And Othman does have some offensive upside to his game. He's a former first-round draft pick. I figured, yeah, I'll throw him on the board as a fantasy sleeper. The MVP, and I thought about Fox, but I can't argue Fox over Shesterkin because Igor's that good, and the fate of the Rangers seems to rest on him. I would say more than Fox. And again, that's not as any kind of a diss to Fox, just Igor can take over a game. He makes those highlight reel saves. I think he fires up his teammates, definitely gets the fans going. MSG is really loud when he's going well. And yeah, I think for Shesterkin, he's got to be the MVP for this team to continue to be a top 10 team in the NHL. Their schedule in October, 7 of 9 games are on the road. So if they have a couple of good road trips to start the season, suddenly we're talking about the Rangers playing really well and having some home games coming up. So for the Rangers, this is going to be an interesting season. The channel vote would seem to indicate that people think they're going to stay right about the same spot. So you had Carolina and New Jersey, the top two. That would seem to be the two that people think will still be numbers 1 and 2. But 28% of the channel think the Rangers will break into that top 2 spot. Third and fourth, 63% of the channel voted for that position for the Rangers. 6% for 5th or 6th, and 3% for 7th or 8th. So I can't see them being 7th or 8th. I honestly can't see them being as low as 5th either, though it is the Metro Division, and Pittsburgh should be better this coming season with the addition of Erik Karlsson. It's possible the Caps have a bounce-back year. We'll see. The Metro could be crazy this year, which would be right on brand for the Metro. So we look at the exits. Patrick Kane, of course, still a free agent currently, waiting until he's healthy before he signs a contract. It won't likely be with the Rangers unless it's a really cheap one. Tarasenko moves on, ends up in Ottawa. Halak's still out there as a free agent. Mikkola ends up moving on. Carpenter and Mott also on the list of players that are out there. Mott still a UFA. Carpenter still a UFA, I believe, as well. Then you get into the additions. You've got Nick Bonino coming in, depth forward at this point, can play in the middle. He can play on the wings as well if he needs to. Belzile brought in good, I think, depth out of Montreal. I like Belzile, he's fine, but again, he's a depth player. The addition of Blake Wheeler could be huge. Blake Wheeler, I don't think he's going to produce with the Rangers like he did with Winnipeg, but he doesn't really have to. So probably on their second line, I would think, probably pencil him in for about 60 points. Tyler Pitlick added. I like him as a depth forward. Eric Gustafsson comes in after what started out as a basically career year for the Caps. Went to Toronto. Things kind of fizzled from there. Mackey comes in, formerly of the Calgary organization, right? Hollowell comes in from Toronto, and Jonathan Quick's added as the backup goaltender. And that is a question mark. So with Shesterkin, you don't want to overplay Igor. You want to make sure he's as healthy and fresh for the playoffs as possible. You need a good backup goaltender for that to happen. Can Jonathan Quick bounce back? Because his numbers in LA weren't great. We went through that fiasco of him being traded to Columbus before he then gets traded to Vegas. And his numbers in Vegas started out pretty good. They fell off a little bit. He didn't play in the playoffs. So Jonathan Quick and his play and his ability to bounce back, he is on a team right now that he said he watched and cheered for growing up, which is great. And so we'll see if that fires him up. It's just that 1-year deal. It's a very team-friendly cap hit, too. And then there's the Panarin question mark after the two assists in 7 games against the New Jersey Devils in the first round. Because of the amount of money Panarin gets, he's going to get more criticism when things don't necessarily go well. And so we'll see how things go for him this regular season. And it doesn't matter, because if they get into the playoffs and if he doesn't score a goal in a first-round loss again, will anything he's done in the regular season change his fortunes for the better or for the worse when it comes to the New York Rangers? One thing is, Lindgren is a restricted free agent in 2024. I would expect that Ryan Lindgren, they get him signed as soon as possible. I love Lindgren's game. I think he's one of the better, grittier defensive defensemen in the NHL. And the fact you've got Trouba and Lindgren, they've also got Keandre Miller, you've got Fox. This is a very good blue line in New York, and varying varying talents for all the players. And I think that the New York Rangers are kind of set up front in net on the blue line. It's just a matter of getting over the hump in the playoffs, which can be the trick. Of course, this is Peter Laviolette's job now. He takes over from Gerard Gallant, and he does have quite the challenge because you're taking over a team that's been very good for the last couple of years. There's some good young players. There, of course, is the kid line. How much do you play the kid line? Do you give Kakko, Lafreniere, and Hedl more ice time and more responsibility, which could eat into some of the minutes that your higher paid veteran players are getting? That's a question that it'll be interesting to see what his answer is early in the season. This is not a team, though, that has a lot of unknowns, a lot of question marks. This is a team that I think we know what we're getting. There are definitely some changes, and whether or not a guy like Wheeler adapts quickly or not is going to be worthy of watching. But I think there's still a top 10 team. It's just that Stanley Cup question is right there. Do you think this team can get over the top? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. And if you don't think this team is going to get over the top, what do they need? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. And yeah, as I said, the channel vote seems to indicate most people think they're going to finish right where they were last year. But it was close. The points between Carolina, New Jersey, and the New York Rangers for most of the season, those three teams were pretty close together. Maybe it happens again. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.